At exactly 3:09 a.m. on February 11th, 2025, an object entered Earth's upper atmosphere. There was no warning, no blip on the radar, no heat signature, no sonic boom to slice through the frozen silence of Alaska's sky. Just a shadow gliding in the upper stratosphere, as if it had always been there. It moved with unnatural precision, stopping midair, hovering silently, as if the laws of inertia were irrelevant. Above the forests of Fort Yukon, it held its position for exactly 6 minutes and 27 seconds. And then it vanished. Not disappeared into the clouds, not faded into distance. It blinked, out of existence. No one was supposed to see it, but one ground-based telescope did. Hidden deep in the frost-rimmed hills of Fort Yukon, its lens caught a glimpse, a distortion in the stars, like space had been crumpled. So did a commercial pilot, flying cargo out of Fairbanks. And so did I. I know what I saw. And it wasn't a satellite. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't from here. It was something else. Something ancient. Something watching. 2 days later, a survey team discovered a mark on the tundra. A perfect circle burned into the snow. 8 meters wide. Not a single footprint around it. No animal tracks. No vehicle imprints. Just scorched earth and ice that had melted from within, leaving behind a hollow, steaming cavity. The temperature that night was minus 27 degrees Celsius. There should have been nothing warm enough to melt that deep. And yet, the ice didn't look melted by fire, but by frequency, vibration, precision beyond any known industrial mechanism. The first sign wasn't something we saw, it was something we heard. February 11th, 2025, 2:22 a.m. Our Deep Range Observatory outside Fairbanks, Alaska, a place buried under 2 feet of snow and cloaked in magnetic silence, picked up something strange. A pulse. Subsonic. Low frequency. It registered at exactly 18.4 hertz, a frequency below the range of human hearing. But it was there, and it was precise, like a metronome hidden beneath the Earth's crust. It repeated every 47 seconds. Not faster, not slower. Perfect. Rhythmic. Artificial. We filtered the signal, and once enhanced, it sounded like a hum. Not mechanical, not electrical. It was organic, soft, almost mournful, like the sound of a heartbeat trapped under a frozen lake. At first, we thought it was glacial activity, ice shifting, but the pattern was too perfect. Nature doesn't operate on perfect timing, so we triangulated it. It didn't come from the sky. It didn't bounce from the ionosphere. It wasn't reflected off satellites. It came from below, from the ice sheet itself. To be more exact, from beneath it. Rough coordinates placed the signal's epicenter 14 kilometers northeast of Fort Yukon, in a region completely uninhabited. No roads, no bases, just permafrost, snow, and silence. I contacted NORAD immediately. Their response: no anomalous activity detected. No satellite drop-ins. Civilian radar? Clean. Weather patterns? Stable. But the hum kept coming. Every 47 seconds. Like clockwork. For nearly 2 hours. And then it stopped. Not faded. Not slowed. Just stopped. At exactly 3:09 a.m. Pause. Breath held. That was the same moment the object arrived. That's when the sky opened. It wasn't dramatic. No thunder. No lightning. Just silence. A silence so thick, so unnatural, it pressed against your skin like cold breath from another world. Witnesses in Fort Yukon, trappers, pilots, a weather station technician, they all saw it. A shape, triangular, immense, silent. It didn't reflect light. It consumed it. A darkness deeper than the night sky itself. Its edges barely visible, outlined only by a shifting halo of soft blue, like bioluminescent fog circling something sacred or dangerous. It made no sound, not even the rustle of air. No wind moved beneath it. Birds stopped flying. The pine trees didn't sway. It just hovered there, weightless, effortless, like gravity had decided to ignore it. We have video footage. It's poor quality, grainy, recorded from a bush plane's dash cam, its lens frosting over from the cold. But it's enough. You can see the stars behind it warp. Not disappear, not dim, but bend, like space was folding, subtly, unnaturally, around the object. This isn't stealth technology. This is an optical illusion. This is spatial distortion, gravitational lensing at close range. A trick we only observe around black holes and neutron stars. This isn't new physics. This is physics we haven't even written yet. And then it moved. But not forward, not sideways. It rotated. Not like a helicopter or aircraft adjusting its pitch. It rotated as if it were scanning, turning on an invisible axis. Peering, perhaps. And when it did, the stars around it shimmered. For just a moment, as if reacting to its presence. Then, without warning, it was gone. No trail, no flash, no descent, no sound barrier broken. Just absence, like a page torn from reality. We arrived at dawn, February 13th. Temperatures were minus 31 degrees Celsius. Windless, utterly still. The coordinates led us to an empty patch of tundra, flat, white, endless. Nothing out of place until you saw it. A perfect circle burned into the snow, 8 meters across, blackened around the edges like frostbite on flesh. But there was no ash, no soot, just ice, melted from within. No footprints, no animal trails, no snowmobile tracks, not even a disturbance in the frost pattern around it. As if the land itself had been anesthetized. We brought ground-penetrating radar, scanned 3 meters down. The ice layers were fractured, but not shattered like from blunt force. No, they were laced with tiny microfractures, delicate and chaotic, like glass exposed to high-frequency vibration. It was as if something had shaken the molecules apart, without touching them. We dug a narrow core into the center. The shaft went down 2.4 meters before we hit solid permafrost again. No debris, no foreign objects. But the walls of the tunnel, the ice glistened strangely, almost like it had crystallized unnaturally. One of our team, Dr. Sutherland, touched it with a bare fingertip. He recoiled immediately, said it felt warm, but not in temperature. It vibrated, he whispered, like it was still alive. We took magnetometer readings. The field was unstable. Readings jumped by 11 microteslas in a matter of seconds. Impossible without a magnetic source. Then, suddenly, every compass on site spun counterclockwise. Just once, then stopped. Something, or someone, had been there, and maybe still was. The air itself felt heavier, denser, as if the atmosphere had been compressed, or waiting. There was no radiation, no chemical residue, no sign of propulsion or combustion. And yet the physical imprint remained. It was like the earth had been pinched, softly, precisely, by fingers not of flesh, but of thought. Before we left, I noticed something else. A flock of ravens had gathered on a distant ridge. They made no sound, no call, just stood in eerie stillness, watching the sight. They didn't move until we packed our equipment and stepped away from the circle. Then, all at once, they vanished into the sky. That night, I returned to our control center with the data. Seismic logs, core temperatures, magnetic readings, everything we had gathered from the site. And then I saw it. The timestamp, 3:09 a.m., didn't just match the moment the object appeared above Fort Yukon. It matched something else. A private research observatory in the Atacama Desert, Chile, had logged a brief gravitational spike at the exact same time. A distortion in local gravity, 0.0048 gs in amplitude, lasting 12.4 seconds. But the object in Alaska was only 8 meters wide. How could it possibly affect gravity halfway across the planet? Unless it wasn't acting through mass, but through space itself. I contacted a colleague in Helsinki who monitors satellite telemetry for orbital anomalies. He sent me raw readings from a microsensor array in low Earth orbit. I remember his message. I don't know what this is, but it blinked into existence above the Bering Strait for 12 seconds. Then gone. Mass detected. No trajectory. No trajectory. That means it didn't enter orbit. It didn't descend. It just appeared and disappeared. That alone was enough to keep me awake for weeks. But it got worse. We recovered a signal, buried in the raw audio of our Arctic ground sensors. It wasn't mechanical, not a known waveform. It wasn't even consistent. It pulsed at 73.6 hertz, then jumped to 223 hertz. Back and forth, over and over. It was a frequency modulation we had seen only once before, in the 1977 WOW signal. Coincidence? Maybe. But the universe doesn't repeat itself by accident. We translated the signal into a visible spectrogram. What we saw still haunts me. Not a message, not a code, but a shape, a spiral, mathematically perfect. Fibonacci sequence embedded within. It wasn't meant to be heard. It was meant to be seen, and maybe to be recognized. By February 14th, the site had changed. When I returned with the second analysis team, we were met with black SUVs. No license plates, tinted windows, men in heavy coats who said nothing and showed no identification. The area had been cordoned off, no-fly zone imposed, airspace restricted for 15 nautical miles. Official explanation? Ice instability from a minor quake. But there was no quake. Locals in Fort Yukon told a different story. Unmarked helicopters, equipment flown in during the night. Snow cleared around the impact site with military precision. One fisherman swore he saw a large cylindrical object being extracted by crane, but by morning, the ground was perfectly smooth again. Refrozen. All cameras in the weather station went offline for 2 hours that night. When they came back, all footage from the 13th was gone. One of our drones, a thermal sensor drone, never returned. GPS showed it hovering above the site, then static. The official report said battery failure. We built that drone ourselves. Its range was double what we used. It didn't fail. We tried contacting the commercial pilot who had first spotted the object. His number was disconnected. His flight logs wiped from public records. FAA refused to confirm he existed. Then came the knock on my door. February 15th, 3:17 a.m. A man in a gray suit. Calm. No anger. No threat. Just a suggestion. You should focus your research elsewhere, Dr. Mercer. There's nothing for you in the cold. He knew my name, my project, my coordinates, but not once did he say who he worked for. By February 20th, 3 of my colleagues had gone dark. Dr. Morgan Lee, electromagnetic physicist, last seen boarding a train to Vancouver. Never arrived. Erica Jensen, data engineer, erased her online presence overnight. Her house was found empty. Dr. Alan Farouk, thermal imaging specialist, now listed as on sabbatical. His office was cleared out by security. They didn't quit. They were removed. And the final insult? Our samples, the ice cores, the crystallized fragments, were confiscated by Department of Energy officials. No receipt, no chain of custody, just gone. It wasn't just a cover-up. It was an erasure of data, of witnesses, of truth. And yet, they missed something. One transmission, one artifact, one clue that slipped through their net. And that is what I'll show you next. February 20th, 2:14 a.m. We received one last transmission. It didn't come from the site. It didn't come from space. It came through a decommissioned Cold War relay tower in northeastern Greenland, a station that hadn't transmitted a signal since 1987. The message was short, 13 seconds, just a tone low, oscillating. And then, buried in the background, a sequence. Binary, structured, encoded. We decoded it using an old Soviet cipher, designed for low-bandwidth espionage in polar regions. It resolved into one word. A single word, in English. Pause. Slow breath. Slight echo in voice. Observe. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a threat. It was instruction. Or perhaps permission. They were not fleeing. They were not hiding. They had never left. They were watching, waiting, testing our awareness, or maybe conditioning it. I replayed the message dozens of times. The tone, the cadence, the hum layered behind it. It wasn't random. It matched, in frequency and waveform, the neural oscillation range associated with deep meditative states. The message wasn't meant for our machines. It was meant for us. And then I remembered something one of my colleagues said, just before he vanished. He had looked at the spiral pattern from the signal, traced its curves for hours. His final words before leaving the lab were, "It's not a message we received. It's a mirror. They're showing us what we've become." I haven't slept well since. Not because I'm afraid of what's out there, but because I no longer know what's in here, in us. We thought we were the watchers, but maybe we're the experiment. I've studied the stars for over 27 years. I've mapped gravitational anomalies, traced rogue asteroids, analyzed dark matter fields. And yet, nothing prepared me for the silence I felt that night. We often think of contact as a moment of light, a flash, a revelation. But maybe it won't be fire in the sky. Maybe it will be a whisper in the ice. Maybe it already was. Since February 2025, I've stopped asking what we saw. Now I ask why it let us see it. What did it want us to observe? What did it see in us worth watching? If you're waiting for disclosure, if you're hoping for governments to reveal what they know, stop. The real answers aren't hidden in classified files. They're hidden in patterns, frequencies, echoes, and they're already here. We were never alone. We were just never ready.